Trauma and drama demand our continued attention. Over the years, news stories like NBC 10, CBS Evening News, KYW3, and many other media stations and outlets are bringing breaking news and developing stories to keep you informed and awakened. What we know now is just as embarrassing and tumultuously inexcusable. Over 23 years, when I watch the news, I've always been looking at other opportunities to be a role model and a wake-up call for people who are enduring the same trauma when they are confronted by acts of evil. Let me repeat that. I'm not talking about acts of hatred, acts of war, acts of evil. We need to specify the degree of what character evil comes to the table. And we need to understand is that there is no excuse for that. Conflicts and unlawful settlements or unwanted terminations or anything. We need to keep our attention focused on the real deal. When I first started, I've heard about housing and stopping juvenile delinquency. This is a problem even today we are still having issues with. Many of the juvenile delinquency incidents occur because of the households or environments they were raised in, especially with those involving bottles of alcohol. And alcohol even today is a primary source of juvenile delinquency. There are copycat incidents from over the 1990s and 80s that absolute hit home than the jaws of life to your fuel tank. And although those feelings are justified, the bigger and larger issues are ignored and are not being taken precautiously. Let me give you a little bit of specifics of what's actually happening. From the riots at Roanoke, Virginia, the inequalities of conflict involving the backgrounds, ethnicity, nationality, imbalances. We need to learn to maintain behavior and composure. From the Mulberry delinquency that happened in Philadelphia back in 1999 and the Johnston gang escaping from state prison a month later. We need to keep our eyes peeled on those stories because we do not need to see copycat incidents happening in our own backyard in our very own eyes. We misinterpret a lot of things, but sometimes that misinterpretation can be justified. Let's not let the stories become about the attackers or the violators. Let it become more of the victims. But in the cutthroat competition, more and more people are making the same egregious mistakes of focusing more on the suspects than on the actual victims. The reporting of it copying over and over and over again has reopened the 6th degree of trauma that can equally hurt worse than a 6th degree burn. That's why I want to help out other people to make sure, whether it comes from topics like sensitivity or anger management, we open our eyes to very egregious ideas and avoid the cataclysmic patterns that can shame somebody's compassion or their courage. It's time that we stand up and we fix everything and x-ray the problems before it starts crystallizing into our own minds. We need to learn from the right people because in certain circumstances, juvenile and adult delinquency can be on the equal level of playing fields, but they have to be treated in a much more sensitive manner and from a much safer distance. I'm Nicholas Matovich.